10 mysterious disappearances that defy explanation. Have you ever wondered where people go when they vanish? No trace, no signs of struggle, no witnesses, no explanation. Today, you'll hear 10 real stories that challenge everything we think we know about our world. These people disappeared under the strangest, most terrifying, and utterly inexplicable circumstances. Some stories hint at supernatural forces, others, alien technologies, and some simply chill you to the bone. To this day, no one knows what really happened to them, and maybe we never will. But you're about to feel just how close the unknown can really come to you. 1. The disappearance of Travis Walton. Abduction by a UFO, USA 1975. November 5th, 1975, Apache Sitgreaves National Forest, Arizona. Travis Walton, 22 years old, lives in the small town of Snowflake. He works on a logging crew with 6 other men. That day, they'd been cutting trees in the mountains near the town of Heber. The workday was ending. The crew climbed into their white pickup truck and began heading back. It was getting dark. They were driving on a remote forest road when the driver, Mike Rogers, noticed a strange glow through the trees. At first, they thought it might be a fire, or maybe a reflection. Sunset, perhaps? But as they got closer, they saw something unbelievable. Hovering just 30 or 40 meters away was a massive disc-shaped object, glowing bright bluish white. It floated silently above the ground, gently rocking back and forth. It was about 6 meters wide, clearly defined. Not a plane, not a helicopter, and definitely not anything from this world. And then Travis, without warning, jumped out of the truck. He walked straight toward the object. The others shouted, panicking, "What are you doing? Come back!" But he didn't stop. It was like he was hypnotized. He walked closer, almost directly beneath it. Then a beam of light. It shot down from the underside of the craft, blinding, like an arc welder's flash. It struck Travis, lifted him into the air, then hurled him backward 3 meters. His body hit the ground. He didn't move. The men in the truck panicked. They floored it, racing away. Fear gripped them. Only minutes later did they realize they had left Travis behind. They turned back, but he was gone. No Travis, no craft, only silence. The search begins. They immediately reported it to the police. Hundreds of people joined the search, on foot, on horseback, in helicopters, with dogs. No tracks, no blood, no sign of Travis. All 6 witnesses took polygraph tests. They all told the same story. They saw a UFO. Travis walked toward it. A beam of light hit him. He disappeared. For 5 days, Travis was presumed dead. Some thought he had faked his disappearance. Others suspected murder. Reporters flooded into Snowflake. The case became national news. Then, something incredible happened. The return. 5 days and 6 hours later, during the night of November 10th to 11th, a phone booth rang in the small town of Heber. The voice on the other end was weak, shaky. It was Travis Walton. He sounded disoriented, exhausted, pale. He asked to be picked up. When they found him, he looked like a man who had been through hell. Thinner, with a grown-out beard, totally confused. He had no idea how long he'd been gone. He thought it had only been a couple of hours. What he described. Gradually, in pieces, he began to remember. He awoke in a strange metallic room. The light was soft. He was lying on a slanted table. Above him, 3 beings. Humanoid, but not human. Short, large heads, pale skin, huge black eyes. They didn't speak, but he could sense communication. Mental, not verbal. He tried to escape, struggled. Then he found himself in another room with people. But they looked too perfect, too symmetrical. They didn't speak either. One of them placed a mask over his face. Darkness again. When he woke up, he was lying beside the road. Aftermath. Travis's story exploded in the media. He took numerous polygraph tests, went under hypnosis, gave dozens of interviews. His experience became the basis for the 1993 film Fire in the Sky. Travis himself admitted the movie dramatized the events, but the core, the encounter, was real. To this day, this case remains one of the most credible UFO abduction stories ever recorded. Why? Multiple witnesses, immediate large-scale search efforts, a confirmed return after 5 days, and a story that hasn't changed in decades. Skeptics have tried to explain it away. Hallucinations, hoax, hypnosis. But they hit a wall. The polygraphs, the witnesses, the beam of light, the vanished man. And the man who came back. Yes. Look. 2. The disappearance of Frederick Valentich. Encounter with a UFO in the sky, Australia, 1978. Date, October 21st, 1978. Location, Australia, over the Bass Strait. Age, 20 years old. Event type, aerial disappearance with documented radio communication about a UFO. Frederick Valentich was a young and ambitious man. He was training to become a pilot, had logged around 150 flight hours, and dreamed of a career in the Royal Australian Air Force. He loved aviation, stargazing, and, according to close friends, had a strong interest in UFO phenomena. On October 21st, 1978, he took off from Moorabbin Airport, a suburb of Melbourne, in a rented Cessna 182 Lima aircraft, registration VHDSJ. His flight plan was a solo training flight southward, to King Island, located in the Bass Strait between mainland Australia and Tasmania. He departed around 6:19 p.m. The weather that evening was calm, clear skies. Valentich was in good spirits. Before departure, he told his parents he planned to have dinner on the island. No one imagined that this would become one of the most mysterious disappearances in modern aviation history. 7:06 p.m. The encounter begins. Frederick radioed Melbourne Air Traffic Control. His voice was tense, but controlled. "Is there any known traffic below 5,000 feet? The controller replied, no other aircraft were in the area. Valentich then reported, "It seems to be a large aircraft below 5,000 feet. It has 4 bright lights and is flying just above me." Over the next 6 minutes, he continued to describe the object, sounding more confused with each transmission. He stated that the UFO moved too fast, performed strange maneuvers, and would vanish and reappear suddenly. At one point he said, "It's not an aircraft, it's hovering above me. It's not following a normal flight path." He also noted that the engine of his Cessna was beginning to sputter. The tension built. 7:12 p.m., his final words. Valentich said, "That strange aircraft is hovering on top of me again. It is hovering, and it's not an aircraft." Immediately after those words, the radio was filled with 17 seconds of metallic, distorted scraping noises. The transmission ended, the connection was lost, and it never returned. A massive search and nothing. The following day, an extensive air and sea search was launched. Involved were the Royal Australian Air Force, Coast Guard, civilian pilots, dozens of volunteers. They scoured the coastline and waters of the Bass Strait for days. They found nothing. No wreckage, no fuel, no body, not even a life jacket. It was as if the plane had vanished into thin air. Strange reports that night. Multiple eyewitnesses from the area reported seeing bright green lights in the sky over the water that night. Some described a large, silent object hovering above the sea. The Australian government conducted an investigation, but officially stated that the cause of the disappearance was undetermined. However, in the official report, a rare term was used: unidentified aerial phenomenon, a highly unusual phrase for a government document. Skeptics versus facts. Some skeptics suggested Valentich staged his own disappearance. Others believed he crashed after losing orientation, but none of it adds up. He had no mental health issues, no debt, no reason to run. He was excited about his future. And his final words? Filled not with panic, but genuine fear and confusion. Psychologists who analyzed the tape later stated that Valentich seemed truly disturbed by something he didn't understand, something he believed wasn't from this world. The verdict. The disappearance of Frederick Valentich is one of the most documented aerial vanishings in history. He left behind only a recording, strange metallic noises, and silence. Many believe this case to be one of the most credible possible contacts with a UFO because there's official audio documentation, there are witness reports, there are anomalies in weather, mechanics, and object behavior, and there is no body, no wreckage, and no explanation. To this day, the skies over the Bay Strait remain quiet, but some still wonder if something is watching from above. The disappearance of Kris Kremers and Lisanne Froon, Mystery of the El Pianista Trail, Panama. In the spring of 2014, two young women from the Netherlands, Kris Kremers, aged 22, and Lisanne Froon, aged 21, set out on the journey of a lifetime. They planned to spend several weeks in Panama, improve their Spanish, volunteer, and experience Latin American culture. Both were well prepared, healthy, and highly organized. Kris was more rational and serious. Lisanne, gentle and optimistic. Together, they were a perfect team, strong, determined, and smart. March 29th, arrival in Boquete. They arrived in the scenic mountain town of Boquete in western Panama. They stayed with a host family, made friends, and planned to volunteer at a local school. They also wanted to explore the area. Boquete is known for its mountain trails and misty jungles. April 1st, the fateful hike. That morning, the girls had breakfast with their host family and said they were going for a short hike along the El Pianista Trail, a well-known but challenging path that winds through rainforest and climbs into the highlands. They left around 11 a.m. They brought one backpack with water, 2 phones, a camera, a small snack, but no map, compass, or emergency gear. They were never seen alive again. Days of silence. When they didn't return that evening, no one panicked. Locals thought they may have stayed with friends, but the next day their host family grew concerned and began searching. Soon, volunteers joined, then local police, eventually even Dutch investigators. The jungle was searched by foot, helicopter, and with dogs, but no sign of them. 10 days passed. Then something surfaced. April 11th, the backpack. A local woman found a backpack while harvesting crops near the mountain base. It was clean, dry, sitting neatly on a rock as if placed on purpose. Inside, both phones, Lisanne's iPhone and Kris's Samsung, a digital camera, 2 pairs of sunglasses, a water bottle, cash, 2 bras. But the most important clues were on the phones and the camera. Phone logs. Starting on April 1st, at 4:39 p.m., Lisanne's phone called 112 and 911, emergency numbers in Europe and Panama. 77 emergency attempts were made over the next 10 days. Only one got through and lasted just a few seconds. Kris's phone shut off on April 5th. It was later turned on, but the wrong PIN code was entered again and again. The last activity was April 11th, the day the backpack was found. The photos. There were 133 photos on the camera. The first? Normal, the girls smiling on the trail by a river in the jungle. Then it got strange. Between April 8th and 9th, more than 90 photos were taken, all in darkness between 1 and 4 a.m. They showed trees, rocks, a steep ravine, reflections. One image, the back of a girl's head, hair messy, likely Kristen. Many were chaotic, as if someone was snapping randomly, maybe using the flash as a signal or trying to light the way. The remains. Weeks later, bones were discovered, scattered, separated by several kilometers. Among them, Lisanne's foot, still inside her boot, a piece of Kris's pelvis, unbroken but bleached white. Folded clothes near a stream, bone markings possibly from sharp objects, not animals. The official ruling, accident. They got lost and died of exposure, but why go so far off trail? Why were photos taken a week later? Why was the PIN code wrong? Why was everything so neatly placed? Theories. They got lost, starved, and died. Murder. Someone used their phones and staged the scene. Paranormal. The night photos, strange patterns, and missing clues led to wild theories. Abduction or attack. Perhaps they were trying to signal with the flash. why it haunts us. This wasn't just a disappearance. It's behavior that defies logic. It's fear captured in electronics. It's the record of a desperate fight for life, deep in the jungle. To this day, the story of Kris and Lisanne remains one of the most chilling and mysterious cases of the 21st century. 4. The disappearance of Brian Shaffer, a mystery inside the bar, USA, 2006. It was an ordinary Friday night, March 31st, 2006. Brian Shaffer, a 27-year-old medical student at Ohio State University, was known by friends and professors as a smart, charismatic, and driven young man. He was focused on his studies, planning a future with his girlfriend Alexis, and dreaming about a vacation. They were supposed to fly to the beaches of Miami together in just a few days. Nothing seemed out of the ordinary. That evening, Brian and his friend William Clint Florence decided to celebrate the start of spring break. They had a few drinks at home and then headed out to Ugly Tuna Saloona, a popular student bar in Columbus, Ohio. At 1:15 a.m., surveillance footage showed Brian riding the escalator up to the bar alongside Clint and their friend Meredith. Everything looked normal. Inside the bar, they were talking, drinking, and at some point, according to the others, Brian stepped away. Maybe to rest, maybe to make a call. That was the last time anyone ever saw him. Where did he go? The cameras saw nothing. Police later reviewed all available surveillance footage from the entrance and exit of the bar. One camera clearly showed Brian entering the bar, but not a single camera ever captured him leaving. That became the central question of the entire case. How can someone vanish from a bar, completely surrounded by cameras, and never be seen again? Every possible exit was considered. The main entrance and exit were under constant surveillance. A back emergency door led to a construction site filled with debris and equipment. To escape that way, Brian would have had to walk in darkness, over planks and rubble, risking serious injury. And even then, he would have appeared on at least one camera. He didn't. Ceiling tiles, ventilation shafts, basements, all were inspected. Nothing. What happened next? When the bar closed, Clint and Meredith searched for Brian but couldn't find him. At first, they thought maybe he had gone outside or left without saying anything. Unusual for him, but maybe the alcohol had played a role. They headed home. Meredith later returned his car to the campus parking lot. The next day, Alexis, his girlfriend, began calling him. She had a bad feeling. Brian didn't answer his phone, and he never showed up at the airport for their flight to Florida. That's when alarms went off. His parents called the police. The strange details begin to pile up. Brian's phone stayed active for several days. On April 6th, 5 days after the disappearance, Alexis called again, and the phone rang. She picked up, heard a faint click, like someone pressing a button, and then the call disconnected. The phone company confirmed the signal pinged from a cell tower near the city of Hilliard, about 12 miles from Columbus, meaning the phone, or someone with it, had moved. There were no charges on Brian's bank cards, no purchases, no logins, no trace. Theories and speculation. Accident at the construction site, maybe he fell and got hurt, but the entire site was searched repeatedly with dogs. Nothing. Staged disappearance. Some believe Brian wanted to escape from the pressure of life. His mother had died just a month before. But why leave everything behind, even his phone and credit cards? Foul play. Maybe he was killed and hidden, but there was no blood, no evidence, no witnesses, no sign of struggle. Paranormal theories. Some say he vanished into thin air, a glitch in space, a time slip, something unexplained. It sounds unbelievable, but even the cameras which should have seen him leave didn't. The final truth? A man disappeared inside a bar, surrounded by people, under surveillance. Nearly 20 years have passed. His father searched until the end of his life. Alexis kept calling, hoping that one day he'd answer. When he vanished, Brian was wearing jeans, a short-sleeved t-shirt, and sneakers. He was in good spirits. He was making plans. And then he was gone. 5. The disappearance of Zigmund Adamski, a mysterious death on a coal pile. England, 1980. June 6th, 1980. Tingley, West Yorkshire. Zigmund Adamski, a 56-year-old retired coal miner of Polish origin, left his home around 3:30 in the afternoon. He told his wife he was going to buy some potatoes and would be back in a couple of hours. He was neatly dressed. Nothing seemed unusual in his behavior, but he never came back. Zigmund was known as a reliable, family-oriented, deeply respected man in his community. He had no enemies, no secrets, and he had been caring for his ill wife. The police, neighbors, and volunteers started searching. There were no witnesses, no clues. It was as if he had vanished into thin air. Then, after 5 days, something truly strange happened. The discovery. On June 11th, his body was found on top of a coal pile in the industrial town of Todmorden, about 20 miles from his home. It was discovered by a driver who immediately called the police in a panic. The first officer on the scene was Alan Godfrey, and he would later become a central figure in this mystery. The strange details. Zigmund's body was lying at the very top of a coal pile, about 10 feet high. The coal was loose. It would have been nearly impossible for a man of his age to climb it. And here's the strangest part. There were no footprints. Not around the pile, not on the coal. It was as if the body had been lowered from above and gently placed. But there was more. He was wearing different clothes than what he had left home in. His shirt was buttoned incorrectly. His trousers weren't fastened, and his shoes were missing. He had odd burns on his neck and shoulders, possibly chemical burns, unlike anything common. The burns had been treated with an unknown gel, not found in any known medical or industrial context. No expert could identify the substance. His face was frozen in an expression of pure terror, as if he died in a moment of extreme fear. And finally, forensic specialists concluded that Zigmund had not been dead for 5 days. He had likely been alive for most of that time, held somewhere, and then suddenly died. From what? A heart attack, possibly from fear. But why was he placed on top of a coal pile? Then it gets stranger. The police officer who found him, Alan Godfrey, would later have his own unexplained encounter. 5 months later, in November of 1980, while patrolling Todmorden, Godfrey saw a large, silent, oval-shaped object floating in the air. He tried to radio for backup, but the radio died. Then, his memory cut out. He woke up in his patrol car 15 minutes later. Under hypnosis, he described scenes resembling an alien abduction. Godfrey was not a civilian. He was an experienced police officer. His testimony was recorded, investigated, and widely publicized. When the media found out, the Adamski case took a wild turn. People began to wonder, was Zigmund abducted by extraterrestrials, taken by mistake, studied, and then returned? But something went wrong. No official body, not the police, not medical experts, could explain how he got on that coal pile, why he was in different clothes, what caused the mysterious burns, what the unknown gel was, and where he had been for 5 whole days. To this day, the death of Zigmund Adamski remains one of the most chilling and mysterious disappearances in the history of the United Kingdom. It combines forensics, psychology, and the paranormal, and maybe even something alien. Decades later, the name Zigmund Adamski still echoes as a symbol of the unexplainable. These were just 5 of the 10 most mysterious disappearances. Like and subscribe. Part 2 with even stranger stories is coming very soon.